history is rather long, perhaps too long for me to even be happy about. But I started a company called Games Workshop in 1975 in an apartment in London. I was sharing that with an old school friend called Steve Jackson. We both had pretty boring jobs and used to play games in the evening. And thought, well, wouldn't it be great to have our own company, make a business out of our hobby? So I said, well, let's publish a little newsletter and see what happens. So we did this little games newsletter and sent it out to everybody we knew. And one of the people who got hold of this newsletter was Gary Gygax. And he wrote back to us and said, love your newsletter. Here's this new game I've just invented. What do you think? So we opened it up, and it's a little brown box with 3 unintelligible rule books, and the game was called Dungeons and Dragons. So we wrote back to Gary and said, fantastic game, and we'd like to order 6 copies. And he wrote back to us and said, thank you for that great order. Please find enclosed a 3-year European distribution agreement exclusive for TSR Hobbies. So we didn't realize what we were being given. What also we didn't realize is that Gary was also operating out of his apartment. So here we are, both trying to be hotshot businessmen, with living in our companies actually in our apartments. But those were the fun days in the mid-70s. Suddenly Games Workshop started to grow pretty significantly. Then we came up with this idea of the Fighting Fantasy concept, which is the first interactive games book. And so Games Workshop grew, Fighting Fantasy grew, and Fighting Fantasy books now have sold 14 million copies in 23 languages worldwide. And invested in a small company called Domark, which is the predecessor to Eidos. And when we were looking for some compression for our PC products, I met Charles Cornwall, who was the CEO of Eidos Technologies as it was, which was an R&D company specializing in video compression in software. And we got on, and it was his idea to merge the 2 companies, and we created this new interactive company, Eidos. Eidos, as it was born in October 1995, and then in 96 we bought Senegold and with it Core and Tomb Raider and all that. So it's grown very quickly into a major publishing force, mainly through acquisition with some organic growth. And of course, my own pet project, being the games freak which I am, was to try and get one of my intellectual properties onto the new medium of games, and hence the decision to develop Deathtrap Dungeon. And I think we've got ourselves a pretty special game there. It's a very large team. They've been working for over 2.5 years, and it's going to be coming out on PC and PlayStation. It's a 3D game. Some people think it's a Tomb Raider engine, but it isn't. It was just a coincidence. It was being developed in parallel, that we both decided to go the way of a 3D game with 3D characters. And whereas Tomb Raider is a brilliant game that it is, it's an action-adventure game. Deathtrap Dungeon concentrates more on combat, and in a medieval world, fantasy role-playing has always been my life, and the Fighting Fantasy books are a sort of cut-down version of role-playing, and I think that's true with what's happening with Deathtrap. It's basically go in a dungeon, see if you can survive, and try and get out alive if you can. There's over 50 creatures in there, some massive environments, and a little bit of British humour in there, a bit like Monty Python. We're a developer publisher, and what I bring to the table is the ability to be able to talk to development teams and understand what they're doing. A lot of publishers are run by lawyers, accountants, salespeople, marketing people, which are good at obviously they're good at what they do, but they don't necessarily understand what is a good game and how to relate to games developers. So the way it works at Eidos is that I can talk to these people, understand where they're coming from, talk to them on equal terms. They might have heard what I've done in the past, so they've got some respect there, and I respect what they're doing. And we can talk about games. So it's not often that you can talk to someone who's pretty senior position in the company to make a decision without going through all the bureaucratic nightmare that other publishers do. So that, in a nutshell, is my games history, apart from also developing 10 board games that I've done, an interactive telephone game. So computer games is the latest medium for me to get my weird and wacky ideas into the public.